The film opens with a young girl named Lauren, an actress who entered Hollywood at a very young age. She grew up on a family TV show called Made the Johnsons. Her childhood was nothing like other kids her age. She lived in luxury, always surrounded by fame and comfort. As the years passed and she continued working on the same show, Lauren grew up in front of the camera. Now, the press was gathered outside her house because a hacker had broken into her phone and leaked a private photo. It was a picture of a pregnancy test. The moment that picture went viral, everything around her erupted into chaos. Lauren felt overwhelmed. The scandals, the rumors, the constant attention were becoming too much. She wanted to get away from everything, even just for a while. Her secretary understood this and found a quiet house deep in the woods where Lauren could stay peacefully for a few days. To throw off the media, her secretary drove out the front gate as if Lauren were in the car. Meanwhile, Lauren slipped out through the back and started her secret getaway. On the drive, her agent called, promising that everything would be handled and that they would track down whoever hacked her phone. Still, the pressure didn't fade. Lauren finally arrived at the house. It was peaceful, surrounded by nature, spacious and beautifully lit. But what she didn't know was that the place was filled with hidden cameras. Someone was watching her, observing her every move. When the person monitoring the cameras saw her, he immediately recognized her as the famous actress. Lauren settled into the house, relaxed, and sat on the sofa. She connected her phone to the Wi-Fi. There, she turned on the news, saw reports about the scandal, and checked the ratings of her show. They were dropping. The show she grew up on was falling apart. The man who played her father on that show was actually the father of her unborn child. His name was Peter. He called her and gently asked where she was. Lauren refused to tell him. Peter tried to sound calm and persuasive, explaining that they needed to control the situation carefully so that their lives, their public image, and the show wouldn't be destroyed. If the pregnancy became public, everything would fall apart. Peter then suggested that if it was too late for Lauren to take the pill, he would bring a doctor to handle the situation privately. He promised to cover the cost. All she had to do was tell him where she was. Hearing that made Lauren furious. She hung up. We learned that Peter was not only older, but also married, with children of his own. He knew that if the news of Lauren's pregnancy came out, both his career and his personal life would be ruined. His assistant sat opposite him and watched quietly until finally he spoke. If you want, I can make this whole problem disappear, he said. Just give me the money and leave the rest to me. Everyone already knows Lauren is upset. I'll go to her. I'll make it look like she took an overdose in a moment of despair. No one will suspect anything, and you'll be free of this mess. Across town, Lauren had shut off her phone. The endless calls and messages had worn her down until she needed silence. The young man assigned to keep an eye on her through the CCTV drifted off, tiredness catching up with him. In that small window of dark, his uncle checked the footage on his own phone and noticed something. A wealthy stranger had come to stay at the property. A plan bloomed in his head, and before long he and his nephew were plotting a break-in. The uncle was called Darren. He recruited his roommate, Marge, and the two set out with a simple scheme. Get in, take whatever valuables they could find, and run. But Lauren's dog sensed the intrusion first. It went from low whine to frantic barking, and the noise pulled Lauren from sleep. She realized someone was in the house and, heart pounding, she crawled into a small cabinet in the corner of a room and held her breath. From inside the cramped darkness, she could hear the intruders moving about. She called out, voice shaking, asking what they wanted. Marge's grip tightened at the sound of her voice. Darren hissed that they should ignore her. Pack up quickly and go. Marge would not be calmed. He argued that the girl might ruin everything and suggested they keep her there, scare her into silence. Before they could settle the argument, the owner of the property arrived. He stepped into the house and warned them not to do what they had come to do. Lauren, terrified and vulnerable, called out from the cabinet, take whatever you want. I won't tell anyone. Just leave me alone. Marge moved to force the door open again. Darren and the other young man tried to stop him, but in the scuffle, the gun in Marge's hand discharged. The shot struck the other boy. For a beat, everyone froze. Panic moved through Darren like ice. Marge would not be stopped. He aimed again and killed the wounded boy with a shot to the head. Darren, overwhelmed and shaking, watched Marge's cold resolve and then, in a desperate, broken moment, turned his anger on Lauren. He accused her, shouting that everything that had happened was her fault. The house echoed with raw, terrible noise. Lay plain for anyone who would see it. We should have killed you first. At least my nephew wouldn't have died. In a blind fury, Darren snapped the knob off the cabinet door. He wasn't thinking straight, but Marge was calm and clear. You stay right here. Don't let anyone come inside. I'll get what we need to dispose of the body. The moment Marge left, Darren began drifting about the room. And poor Lauren, trapped behind the broken door, realized she was locked in. She fought the jammed door with everything she had. She pushed and pulled until her hands ached, but it would not open. Her frantic efforts only left her hurt and exhausted. Frustration turned to desperate shouting for help, but there was no one for miles. She called for her dog, but fear had driven the dog away, crying herself to sleep. When she woke the next morning, the cabinet held nothing but a water heater and a single bulb with frayed wiring. She managed, by some miracle, to fix the wiring and get the light to burn. Hunger gnawed at her. Strange, uneasy feelings rose from deep inside. She clutched her stomach and wept. Thirst tightened her throat. Suddenly she heard the faint rush of water. Looking up, she saw pipes running overhead. She knocked on the cabinet walls and discovered they were hollow. Hope sparked. She searched for the thinnest spot and began to pry and break at it. In the middle of that struggle, the bulb, which she had lit with such effort, flickered and went out. When she reached up to fix it again, a violent jolt of electricity slammed through her. The shock left her thirstier and more drained than before. She could do nothing but take deep, shuddering breaths to calm herself. Then she heard movement behind the wall. At that moment, Marge and Darren returned to the house. The instant Lauren realized they were there, she screamed for help. "Please, help me. Take whatever you want. I have a lot of money. If you don't want police trouble, I can take care of that. I'll lie to the police. I'll say I got trapped here and didn't see anything. Darren, listen. I'll tell them your nephew followed me. He tried to force himself on me, and in the struggle his gun went off. He killed himself with his own gun." Her words burrowed into Darren's mind and unmoored him. "Overcome. I'm a very famous actress," she said. "Everyone will believe me." Darren wanted to believe Lauren, but Marge wouldn't allow it. Furious and confused, Darren snapped. He began slamming his head and fists against the wall like he was losing his mind. Trying to stop him, Marge fired her gun toward the wall, but the bullets ricocheted back. One bullet struck her in the head, and another hit Darren in the shoulder. Marge collapsed and died instantly, while Darren was left badly wounded. Bleeding and stumbling, Darren tried to get away. From inside the small cabinet, Lauren screamed for him. "I'm pregnant. Please, don't leave me like this. You can't do this to me." But Darren, barely conscious, could only stagger away. He eventually reached a hospital and collapsed the moment he got inside. Back in the cabinet, Lauren was growing weaker by the minute. A rat suddenly crawled across her, jolting her awake. She knew she couldn't survive in the darkness. With shaking hands, she messed with the exposed wiring again, trying to bring back the light. The bulb flickered, then turned on. She spotted an iron pipe nearby, grabbed it, and used it to kill the rat. But the effort drained the last bit of energy she had. Exhausted, dehydrated, and starving, she collapsed and began hallucinating. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the police questioned Darren. The doctors mentioned he had been mumbling about a pregnant woman while unconscious, but they assumed it was just the drugs talking and didn't take it seriously. Back in the cabinet, Lauren was on the verge of death. Her thirst became so unbearable that she bent down and licked the wet floor where the water was dripping. Just those few drops gave her a spark of strength. She picked up the metal pipe again and began smashing the wall. When she finally broke through, her hope shattered. There was another solid brick wall behind it. She had nowhere to go. But inside the debris, she found a rat's nest. And in that nest was a hammer. For the first time, she felt hope. With the hammer, she might be able to break the lock and escape. But before she could act, the pipe overhead burst. Water started flooding the small cabinet. Somewhere else in the city, Lauren's dog had been found by a young woman on the street. The girl took a picture of the dog and posted it online. The post quickly blew up. Through the comments, she learned that the dog belonged to Lauren. At the same time, the police were searching Darren's house. They found his blood-soaked shirt and started piecing together a much darker story. Croft, the man who had originally been willing to kill, he reached out to her, offering a huge amount of money if she told him where she found the dog. The girl immediately realized this wasn't just about a missing pet anymore. Something much bigger was happening. And then, the scene cuts back to the hospital, where Darren finally opens his eyes. The police started questioning Darren about his nephew and his friend Marge, but Darren refused to say anything about them, insisting he didn't know who they were. When the officers pressed him further, asking who had attacked him, Darren claimed that the bullet wound was his own fault. He explained that he had been trying to shoot a lock open, but the bullet had ricocheted and hit him in the shoulder. The police didn't seem convinced. They told him that they had searched his house and found a blood-soaked shirt, which had already been sent to forensics. They warned him that soon, they'd find out whose blood it was. The scene then shifts back to Lauren, who was desperately using a hammer to break the hinges off the door. Meanwhile, Croft was on the other side of town. Arriving at the veterinary clinic where the girl had taken Lauren's dog, Croft slipped the doctor some money and told him to call the girl to the clinic. But the doctor sensed that Croft was up to no good. He quickly called the girl to warn her, telling her to disappear with the dog immediately before she got herself killed. Back at the hospital, Darren asked the police and the doctor for permission to use the restroom, but instead of returning, he managed to slip away, escaping from the hospital. Outside, he stole a car and drove straight to Lauren's house. Inside, the situation was getting worse. Water was rapidly filling the cabinet Lauren was trapped in. If she didn't break the door soon, she would drown, and the faulty wiring nearby meant she could also get electrocuted at any moment. At the same time, the girl who had tried to run away with Lauren's dog was now being moving car and ran straight back to the house. Trying to find Lauren, it rushed inside, barking and searching frantically while Lauren fought to free herself, her head already submerged in the rising water. Darren finally reached the house and entered the room. The first thing he did was grab Lauren's dog, but before he could open the door, Croft stormed in. He had followed the dog there. Without hesitation, Croft shot Darren in the head, killing him instantly. Croft began searching for Lauren and soon noticed water leaking from the cabinet. He saw two bodies already lying on the ground. He then called his boss, demanding double payment, saying the situation had gotten out of hand for murders instead of one. As he cautiously approached, Lauren finally broke through the door. The force of the water knocked the door straight onto Croft, pinning him down while Lauren landed on top. Just then, the girl who had followed the dog arrived. She was shocked by what she saw and reached out to help. Before they could react, Croft got back on his feet and pointed his gun at Lauren. The other girl tried to stop him, giving Lauren the chance to run. But Croft was too strong. He punched the girl hard, knocking her unconscious. Lauren hid quietly, waiting for the right moment. When Croft walked past, she swung a metal pipe and struck him from behind, knocking him out cold. Suddenly, Croft's phone rang. Lauren looked at the screen and saw it was a call from Peter, her own friend. She answered, but stayed silent. As she listened, she realized that Peter was the one who had ordered her death. Croft regained consciousness and lunged at her, grabbing for her throat. Lauren struck him again, harder this time. The pipe split his head open, and blood splattered all over her face. But it was finally over. She had survived. Moments later, the police arrived and immediately recognized Lauren. Reporters were already gathered outside. Lauren asked for her phone and uploaded the same photo that had once caused her scandal. This time, she wasn't hiding anything. She refused to protect the man who had tried to kill her. The scene then shifts to Peter, surrounded by the media as reporters bombarded him with questions. He called Lauren's story a lie, but no one believed him anymore. Soon, the police arrived and arrested him for attempting to have her killed. Justice was finally served. The criminal met his end and the movie came to a close.